John Miller squinted at the monitor, the eerie glow of alien topography casting shadows across his face. The research outpost Frontier 7 hummed with activity as scientists analyzed data from the unexplored planet Nova 6. As the station's lead xenobiologist, John had seen his share of strange creatures, but nothing had prepared him for what the reconnaissance drones had captured. "Are you seeing this?" asked Kate Wilson, his research assistant. She pointed at a blur of movement in the footage. "Whatever it is, it's fast." John leaned closer. "Enhance Sector 4. The image sharpened, revealing a glimpse of something massive with iridescent scales that seemed to shift colors with the environment. Commander Olivia Daniels stepped into the lab, her expression grim. "The survey team hasn't reported in for 3 hours. We're sending a rescue squad, and I want you with them, Miller." "Me? I'm a researcher, not security." "You're the only one who might recognize what we're dealing with." Dropship leaves in 30 minutes. The descent to Nova 6 was rough, atmospheric turbulence, buffeting the small craft as it cut through dense cloud layers. John clutched his equipment case, stomach churning from more than just the bumpy ride. 6 heavily armed security personnel checked their weapons, faces set in professional masks that didn't quite hide their unease. "This your first field mission, Doc?" asked Garcia, the squad leader. "On an unknown planet?" "Yes." Garcia nodded. "Stay behind us and follow orders. We find our people and get out." Simple. Nothing about Nova 6 was simple. The moment they stepped off the dropship, John felt it, an oppressive silence that seemed unnatural for a world teeming with life according to their sensors. The jungle-like vegetation glowed with bioluminescence, casting everything in an eerie blue light. They found the survey team's base camp abandoned, equipment scattered as if they'd left in a hurry. No blood, no signs of struggle, just emptiness. "Tracks lead this way," said Rivera, the team tracker, pointing toward a dense thicket. Multiple sets, moving fast. They followed cautiously, weapons ready. John scanned the environment with his bioreader, noting unusual pheromone signatures in the air. Something was watching them. He could feel it. The attack came without warning. A blur of motion from above, then screams. 2 security officers were gone in seconds, yanked into the canopy with frightening speed. The team opened fire blindly at shadows. "Fall back," Garcia shouted. Another blur, and Rivera disappeared. John froze as he caught his first clear glimpse of their attacker, nearly 3 meters tall, with a skeletal exoskeleton and limbs that seemed to bend in impossible ways. Its skin rippled, matching the surrounding vegetation perfectly before his eyes. The creature moved with terrifying intelligence, separating the humans methodically. Not the mindless predation of an animal. This was strategic hunting. When it came for John, he didn't run. Some instinct told him that it would be fatal. Instead, he slowly lowered himself to the ground, making himself smaller. The creature paused, massive head tilting in what looked remarkably like curiosity. Their eyes met, 6 pupilless orbs studying him with unmistakable intelligence. John held his breath. The creature made a low, rumbling sound, then retreated into the shadows as suddenly as it had appeared. Back at the outpost, medical treated John's minor injuries, while Commander Daniels debriefed him. "You're saying it deliberately spared you?" she asked incredulously. "It was studying us, learning about us." "That's not animal behavior." John pulled up the footage from his bioscanner. "Look at the brainwave patterns. They're complex, structured, possibly as advanced as our own. It killed 4 of my people, Miller. We invaded its territory. I'm not justifying the deaths, but there's something remarkable happening here. I need to go back." Daniels stared at him like he'd lost his mind. "Absolutely not. I can establish contact. It had opportunities to kill me, but didn't. That means something. You're a scientist, not a diplomat." John's expression hardened with determination. "Sometimes they're the same thing. I'm going back, with or without authorization. This could change everything we understand about interspecies communication. Against all regulations and common sense, John began preparing for his return to Nova 6, convinced that the galaxy's most lethal predator might be the key to humanity's greatest diplomatic breakthrough. If he could survive long enough to prove it. John returned to Nova 6 3 days later, alone except for a small drone hovering above his shoulder. Commander Daniels had reluctantly approved his expedition under strict conditions. He would maintain constant communication, carry a location tracker, and have an emergency extraction team on standby. The jungle seemed different now. John moved slowly through the undergrowth, deliberately making noise to announce his presence. He wanted to be found. "I know you're watching," he said aloud, setting up his observation equipment in a small clearing. "I came back to learn, not to hurt." Hours passed with nothing but the strange calls of native wildlife. As twilight approached, John activated the biosensors that would monitor the area while he slept in his reinforced shelter. He didn't expect to sleep much. The creature appeared just before dawn. John awoke to the shelter's proximity alert vibrating silently against his wrist. Through the transparent ceiling, he could see it, massive and terrifying, studying his shelter with those intelligent eyes. John slowly sat up, making deliberate movements. The creature didn't retreat. "Hello again," he said softly. The predator made a series of clicking sounds followed by a low rumble. John's translation software recorded the sounds but couldn't interpret them yet. He needed more data. Over the next week, John established a routine. Each day, he would leave small offerings, not food, which might seem like an attempt to domesticate, but simple objects, a piece of reflective material, a small light, things that might interest an intelligent being. The creature, which John had begun calling the Vekar based on markings resembling that pattern on its exoskeleton, began leaving things in return, strange crystalline structures, pieces of unknown technology, communication attempts. "They're trying to tell me something," John reported to Commander Daniels during his daily check-in. "The Vekar aren't just predators. They're a civilization." "Your evidence is circumstantial," Daniels replied, her voice crackling through the comm. "Central Command is getting impatient. The mining survey needs to continue. Tell them to wait. We're making progress." The breakthrough came on the 10th day. John had been working on a primitive translation system based on the patterns he'd observed in the Vekar's sounds and movements. The predator approached closer than ever before, extending one of its 4 upper limbs toward John's equipment. John remained perfectly still as the Vekar examined his computer. Then it made a series of clicking sounds directly into the microphone. The translation program flashed. "Danger. Others come." John's heart raced. "What others?" "More like you." Another series of clicks and rumbles. "Not like MA. Hunters. Kill you." John realized with sudden clarity. The Vekar wasn't the only apex predator on Nova 6, and it was warning him. Just then, his comm unit crackled. "Miller, we've detected multiple large bioforms moving toward your position," came Garcia's voice. "Extraction team is launching." "No," John said urgently. "Don't come. You'll provoke them." The Vekar was agitated now, looking toward the dense jungle. It made a decisive sound and gestured for John to follow. Against all protocols and better judgment, John grabbed his essential equipment and followed the predator into the undergrowth. The creature moved with incredible speed, occasionally pausing to ensure John kept pace. They reached a hidden cave entrance just as John heard distant sounds of combat, the extraction team encountering whatever had been approaching his camp. Inside the cave, bioluminescent fungi revealed intricate carvings on the walls, proof of culture, of history. The Vekar led him deeper, to where several more of its kind waited. Rather than feeling threatened, John felt an overwhelming sense of discovery. "You're protecting me," he whispered, understanding dawning. "Why?" The Vekar, the one he now thought of as his Vekar, made a series of sounds. The translation was rough, but clear enough. Same. You studi, I studi y. Learn together. John realized he had found not just a predator, but a kindred spirit, a scientist among its own kind. John sat cross-legged on the cave floor, watching as the Vakar used its clawed appendage to draw symbols in the dirt. After 3 weeks in their underground sanctuary, he had made remarkable progress understanding their complex language. His translator now interpreted about 40% of their vocalizations and chemical signals. Your people fear mine. The Vakar, whom John now called Shirak, communicated through a combination of sounds and gestures. Yes, John admitted, you are powerful hunters. Shirak's outer membrane rippled in what John had learned was amusement. We hunt to survive, not for pleasure. The cave system housed roughly 30 Vakar, a small community separate from the main population. John had learned they were researchers too, scientists studying the planet's ecosystem, much like himself. Evolution had made them apex predators, but intelligence had given them curiosity and culture. John's comm unit crackled to life, breaking the peaceful moment. Commander Daniel's voice came through, strained with tension. Miller, respond immediately. We know you're alive. Your tracker is still functional. John sighed and picked up the device. I'm here, Commander. I'm safe. You've been missing for 3 weeks. We lost 3 men looking for you. I warned you not to send them. There are other predator species here, far more dangerous than the Vakar. The what? The species I've been studying. They're intelligent, Commander. They have language, culture, technology. I've been living with them, learning from them. Silence followed. Then, the extraction team spotted 8 more research vessels entering orbit yesterday. Central Command is taking over the operation. They're classifying the Vakar as a Class 1 threat to human expansion. John felt cold dread spread through him. What does that mean? It means they're sending specialists to capture specimens for study, and they want you to help. The Vakar around him had gone still, sensing his distress. Their sensory organs could detect human emotional states through subtle chemical changes. I won't help you capture them, John said firmly. This isn't a request, Miller. It's an order. Captain Ben Peterson is leading the operation. He'll be at your location in 18 hours. The comm went dead. John looked up at Shirak, who had understood enough to grasp the situation. Your kind comes to take us, Shirak stated. Yes, I won't let them. Shirak's massive form shifted closer. Why do you protect us? We are not your kind. John thought about how to explain. When I was young, I found an injured bird. Everyone told me to leave it alone, that nature should take its course. But I couldn't. I built it a shelter, fed it, helped it heal. People said I was wasting my time, that it would never survive. But it did. He paused, remembering. That bird taught me something important. Life doesn't have to be about who is strongest. Sometimes it can be about who helps each other. Shirak made a low rumbling sound that the translator interpreted as contemplation. After a moment, the Vakar extended one limb toward John's shoulder, a gesture of incredible trust. We have old stories, Shirak communicated, of star travelers who came before. They did not seek understanding, only conquest. Humans can be like that, John admitted, but not all of us. Shirak led John deeper into the cave system, to a chamber he hadn't seen before. The walls glowed with embedded technology far more advanced than anything humans possessed. At the center stood a structure resembling a communication array. Our ancestors left this, Shirak explained, to warn of the others. What others? Those who hunt even us. The reason we evolved to be predators. Shirak activated the device, showing holographic images of a truly terrifying species. They will return. Without unity, all will perish. John understood then. His friendship with Shirak wasn't just about scientific discovery. It could be the key to both their species' survival against a greater threat. But first, he had to prevent Captain Peterson's capture mission from destroying everything they'd built. "We have 18 hours, John said. "We need a plan." John paced the cave chamber, mind racing as he formulated a plan. Chirac and 3 other Vicar watched him, their bodies shifting colors with the changing light. "Peterson will bring at least 20 soldiers," John explained. "They'll have tranquilizers designed from my initial biological data on your species. These will not work as they expect," Chirac communicated. "Our biology changes with seasons." John stopped pacing. "You mean the data I sent back is already outdated?" The translator interpreted Chirac's response as affirmation. "Our blood chemistry shifts with lunar cycles. Their weapons will cause pain but not sleep." This was both concerning and potentially useful. Wounded, angry Vicar would be far more dangerous than their human hunters anticipated. "We need to prevent a confrontation entirely," John decided. "If they see your full capabilities, they'll just return with bigger weapons." The cave entrance vibrated slightly as sensors detected approaching aircraft. John checked his watch, still 7 hours before Peterson's stated arrival time. "They're early," he muttered. One of the younger Vicar approached, making urgent clicking sounds. The translator struggled but managed. "Many humans. North Ridge. Setting traps." Chirac's body tensed. They hunt already. Through their shared weeks together, John had learned that while the Vicar were predators, they followed strict ethical codes about hunting. They never killed unnecessarily and never ambushed prey that could communicate. These human tactics would be seen as dishonorable. "I need to warn them," John said. "If I can talk to Peterson." "Too dangerous," Chirac countered. "They will use you to find us." A distant explosion shook the cave. The humans were using sonic mapping to locate the cave system. John made a decision. "I studied your camouflage abilities. Could you help me move unseen to their position?" Chirac considered this. Possible, but dangerous. More dangerous than waiting here to be captured. The Vicar made a sound John had come to recognize as reluctant agreement. From a recess in the wall, Chirac retrieved a small object resembling a smooth stone. When pressed against John's skin, it released a thin film that covered his exposed flesh. "This will mask your heat signature," Chirac explained. "Move as I show you." Together, they slipped out through a secondary tunnel. The jungle outside was already scared by the humans' arrival. Trees knocked down to create landing zones, sensor equipment scattered throughout the vegetation. John followed Chirac, mimicking the predator's distinctive 3-step movement pattern that minimized detection. They reached a ridge overlooking the human camp in under an hour. The operation was much larger than John had feared. 3 dropships had landed, and at least 40 soldiers in exo-armor moved through the jungle. Scientists in protective gear were setting up a containment facility. John spotted Captain Peterson, a tall, stern-faced man directing operations from a mobile command center. He was speaking with a woman in a lab coat who looked disturbingly familiar. "That's Dr. Laura Harris," John whispered. "She specializes in weaponizing alien biology. They're not here to study you. They want to turn you into weapons." Chirac made a low sound of anger. More Vicar emerged silently from the jungle around them. At least 15, their bodies nearly invisible against the foliage. "No," John said urgently. "If you attack, they'll label your entire species as hostile. It will justify extermination." "What do you suggest?" Chirac asked. Before John could answer, a sensor drone spotted them. Alarms blared through the camp. Peterson's voice boomed over loudspeakers. "Dr. Miller, we can see you. Step away from the alien and return to base immediately." John stood, revealing himself fully. "Captain Peterson, you need to withdraw. You don't understand what you're dealing with." Peterson's response was quick and cold. "Secure the asset. Tranquilize the specimen." Soldiers rushed forward as Chirac and the other Vicar melted into the jungle. A dart struck John's shoulder before he could react further. As consciousness faded, his last sight was of Chirac watching from the shadows, 6 eyes glowing with what he now recognized as concern. John woke up strapped to a medical bed inside one of the dropships. His head pounded from the tranquilizer's aftereffects. Dr. Harris stood over him, checking his vital signs on a monitor. "Welcome back, Dr. Miller," she said coolly. "You've put us in quite a difficult position." John tested his restraints. They were secure. "Where's Captain Peterson?" "Organizing the hunt. Your new friends disappeared after we captured you, but we've set perimeter sensors throughout the region." She leaned closer. "I need you to tell me everything about them. Weaknesses, behaviors, communication methods, everything. So you can turn them into weapons." Harris's expression hardened. "So we can understand a potential threat. These creatures killed 7 of our people." "In self-defense," John argued. "They're intelligent, Laura. They have culture, technology, language. Treating them like animals is a mistake that will get more people killed." A loud alarm blared through the ship. Harris rushed to a console. "Perimeter breach in sectors 4 through 7, reported a soldier's voice over the comm. "Multiple contacts moving fast. We can't get clear shots." Peterson's voice cut in. "Fall back to the ships. Use the sonic cannons." John felt a chill. The Vicar were attacking, exactly what he feared would happen. Harris left in a hurry, the medical bay door sealing behind her. John struggled against his restraints until he noticed something strange. A small patch on his arm was dissolving into his skin, the same material Chirac had given him for camouflage. It was eating through the synthetic restraints. Within minutes, John was free. He grabbed his translator device from a nearby table and moved to the door. Through the small window, he could see chaos outside. Soldiers fired blindly into the jungle as shadows moved with impossible speed between trees. The sonic cannons fired with deafening booms, but seemed to hit nothing. John managed to override the door lock using his scientific access codes. He slipped outside during the confusion, ducking behind equipment crates. The battle was clearly not going well for the humans. He counted at least 5 soldiers down already. A familiar presence materialized beside him. Chirac's massive form appeared from seemingly nowhere. "You should not have come," John said. "They'll never stop hunting you now." "We did not come for battle," Chirac replied. "We came for you." John was stunned. "You risked your lives to rescue me." "Friend of Vicar is Vicar." The Predator extended a limb, helping John to his feet. "Now we must go quickly." They moved through the battle zone, Chirac's camouflage abilities hiding them both. Other Vicar were creating diversions, drawing fire away from their escape route. They had nearly reached the jungle's edge when Captain Peterson stepped into their path, holding an advanced-looking weapon. "Stop right there, Miller." The captain's face was streaked with dirt and blood from a cut above his eye. "I don't know what these things have done to your mind, but I'm taking you back." Chirac tensed, ready to attack. John placed a restraining hand on the Predator's limb. "They've done nothing to me, Captain. They've shown me that different species can communicate, can understand each other. This doesn't have to end in bloodshed." Peterson's finger tightened on the trigger. "They killed my men. And how many of them have you killed? This cycle has to stop." John stepped forward slowly. "The Vicar aren't the real threat. There's something else out there, something that hunts even them. We need to work together." Peterson hesitated, his weapon still raised. In that moment of uncertainty, 3 more Vicar appeared behind him. Peterson spun around, but they made no move to attack. "Look," John said. "They could kill you right now, but they're not. That's restraint. That's intelligence. Please, lower your weapon." A tense silence followed. Then, slowly, Peterson lowered his gun. "You have one chance to explain," he said. "Make it count." John glanced at Chirac, who made a gesture of approval. Perhaps there was hope after all. a chance to bridge the gap between these two predator species and forge an alliance that might save them all from what was coming. John led Captain Peterson and Dr. Harris deep into the Vekar cave system. 4 armed soldiers followed at a distance, weapons lowered but ready. Shirak moved ahead, occasionally pausing to ensure the humans kept pace. "This is against every protocol," Peterson muttered. "Command will have my rank for this. If I'm right, they'll give you a promotion instead," John replied. They reached the chamber with the ancient technology. The wall displays glowed brighter at their approach, sensing new biological signatures. 5 elder Vekar waited inside, their exoskeletons bearing elaborate markings that John had learned indicated leadership and wisdom. "These are the elders," John explained. "They preserve the history and knowledge of their species." The oldest Vekar stepped forward, its movements deliberate and dignified despite its predatory form. Through John's translator, it addressed the humans directly. "Children of Earth, we welcome you to the memory chamber." Peterson's hand instinctively moved toward his weapon, startled by the direct address. "They know about Earth," Harris whispered. "The Vekar have observed humanity for generations," John explained, "long before we discovered this planet." The elder activated the central holographic display. Images appeared showing massive ships descending on various worlds. Then came scenes of devastation, entire ecosystems reduced to ash. "The harvesters," the elder communicated. "They seed worlds with life, wait millennia for it to flourish, then return to consume everything." Dr. Harris stepped closer to the display, scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. "Some kind of interstellar farming." "Yes," the elder confirmed. "Our ancestors fled their homeworld when the harvesters returned. They settled here, evolved to defend themselves." The display shifted to show truly nightmarish creatures, insectoid forms twice the size of the Vekar, with specialized appendages designed for efficient killing. "The harvesters created us to be predators," Shirak explained, "to cull weak species and strengthen the ecosystem. They did not expect us to develop intelligence, or to remember them," added the elder. Captain Peterson studied the horrific images with growing concern. "When are these harvesters due to return?" The elder made a series of clicks that the translator struggled to interpret. Finally, it produced, "Signs indicate soon, within your lifetime." A heavy silence fell over the chamber. John watched the military man's face as he processed this information, calculating threats and possibilities. "Neither of our species can face this alone," John said. "But together, combining human technology with Vekar biological adaptations, we might stand a chance." Peterson turned to Harris. "Doctor, your assessment." She hesitated, looking between the holographic horrors and the Vekar elders. "The biological evidence supports their claims. These cave markings date back thousands of years. They couldn't have fabricated this just to convince us. Even if there's only a 10% chance they're telling the truth, we can't afford to ignore this," John added. Peterson nodded slowly, coming to a decision. "I'll need to take this evidence back to Earth Command. They'll want verification, more data." "And the hunt?" John asked pointedly. "Suspended, pending reassessment of the Vekar classification." Peterson straightened his posture, addressing the elder directly. "I propose a temporary truce while our governments establish formal contact." The elder extended 2 limbs in what John recognized as a gesture of agreement. "We accept. The human miller will serve as our voice until formal bonds are established." As they prepared to leave, Shirak approached John privately. "Your kind still fears us." "Fear can change to respect with time," John replied. "It won't be easy." "Nothing important ever is," Shirak's translator conveyed with surprising eloquence. Back at the human camp, Peterson began dismantling the capture equipment while opening a secure channel to Earth Command. Dr. Harris worked alongside John, eagerly documenting everything they'd learned about Vekar biology and culture. "You know," she said quietly, "when they sent me here, they told me I'd be studying mindless predators. I never expected to be planning an alliance with them against an interstellar threat. John smiled. Sometimes the most dangerous thing in the universe isn't teeth or claws. What is it then? Underestimating your neighbor. As night fell on Novus 6, Vikar and humans worked side by side for the first time. An alliance born of necessity, but growing into something more profound than either species could have imagined. 6 months had passed since the first official alliance between humans and Vikar was signed. The research outpost on Novus 6 had grown into a joint settlement where both species worked and lived together. John walked through what the humans called the shared zone, nodding to both human researchers and Vikar as he passed. He entered the communications center where Captain Peterson, now Colonel Peterson, was speaking with Earth Command via holographic display. The stern military man had become one of the strongest advocates for the alliance. The defense grid is at 60% completion, Peterson reported. Vikar sensory technology integrated with our weapon systems has doubled the effective range. The Earth official nodded approvingly. And the biological compatibility research. Dr. Harris can brief you on that, Peterson said, gesturing to the scientist who stood nearby. Harris stepped forward. The adaptive camouflage technology we've developed from Vikar biology has exceeded expectations. Field tests show 93% effectiveness against harvester sensor patterns based on historical data. John watched with pride. In half a year, they had accomplished what might have taken decades without cooperation. Humans provided advanced technology and manufacturing capabilities, while the Vikar contributed their biological adaptations and knowledge of the harvesters. After the meeting, John met Shirak at the settlement perimeter. The massive predator's appearance had changed subtly. Decorative markings on its exoskeleton indicated its new role as ambassador to humanity. The young ones learned quickly, Shirak commented, watching human children playing with juvenile Vikar in a specially designed area. The sight would have been unthinkable months ago. The galaxy's most feared predators gently interacting with human children. Parents still watched nervously, but the fear was fading. Children don't carry the same prejudices we do, John replied. To them, your people are just different, not frightening. They walked to the observation ridge overlooking the valley where construction teams were building massive defensive structures. Vikar worked alongside human engineers, their natural climbing abilities proving invaluable for the high sections. The elders spoke of a vision. Shirak said suddenly, "They say when the harvesters return, they will find not separate prey, but unified resistance." John nodded. I believe that too, though not everyone back on Earth is convinced. There will always be doubt, Shirak acknowledged, until danger stands before them. A small ship appeared on the horizon, another supply transport from Earth. But this one was different, marked with diplomatic insignia. The ambassador has arrived, John noted, the first official diplomatic representative from Earth. They returned to the landing pad as the ship touched down. The door opened to reveal a distinguished woman in formal attire. Ambassador Claire Roberts had been chosen specifically for her experience with first contact scenarios. Her eyes widened slightly at seeing Shirak up close, but she controlled her reaction admirably. Dr. Miller, an honor to meet you. Your reports have changed humanity's approach to alien contact forever. Ambassador, John greeted. May I present Shirak, first voice of the Vikar Council. To her credit, Roberts extended her hand toward the predator without hesitation. Shirak gently touched it with a limb tip in the greeting they had developed for human-Vikar interactions. Your journey here shows great courage, Shirak communicated through the now refined translator. As does your willingness to trust us after our initial misunderstanding, Roberts replied diplomatically. Later that evening, the settlement held a ceremony to formalize the expanded alliance. Humans and Vikar gathered in the central chamber of the cave system, surrounded by the ancient warnings about the harvesters that had started everything. Colonel Peterson presented John with a new insignia, Director of Interspecies Relations, a position created specifically for him. When I first met you, Peterson said to the gathered crowd, "I thought you were a naive scientist who had been manipulated by dangerous predators. I was wrong in ways I couldn't have imagined." As the celebration continued, John found a quiet moment with Chirac. "Did you ever think this was possible? Humans and Vicar working together?" "Not until I met one human willing to see beyond fear," Chirac replied. "Sometimes one connection is all that's needed to change the path of two species." In the night sky above Novus 6, a meteor shower began, beautiful but also a reminder of what might come from those same stars. Whatever happened when the harvesters returned, they would find something unprecedented. Two former enemies standing as one, ready to defy the expectations of the galaxy.